ISRO, the most successful space agency after NASA.
This video is supported by Brilliant. Hey, welcome back, I'm Lai. On this channel, I've talked a lot about technology and business of space companies. I've talked about national agencies like NASA, ESA, and Roscosmos. I've also talked about private companies like SpaceX and Rocket Lab. One entity I've refrained to talk about is ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization.
To be honest, SpaceX and NASA is the only names that I knew. Though obviously I know India, China have some big space program, but I don't know the name or how good they do or anything.
Simply because it's really hard to pigeonhole ISRO. Yes, it is a traditional national agency, much like NASA of the United States, but it's also at the same time extremely cost-conscious and result-oriented like a startup. Its launch price is almost as competitive as SpaceX. So let's talk about it today. Where does ISRO really fit in, and what makes it so special?
Okay.
First of all, it is not fair to compare ISRO with other space agencies because ISRO has never possessed the ambitions or the fundings like the other space agencies. NASA's budget each year is $18 billion, $7 billion for European Space Agency, $3 billion for the Chinese and the Russians. ISRO's budget each year is only $1.7 billion. Think about it. With $285 billion cash reserve, Apple could have funded ISRO with cash for 167 years. That is how little ISRO spends every year, and that is why comparing
I mean, as always, as a normal person, $1 billion, I can't even, realize what that is. But I do assume that it is kind of small in the context of, space program and all that. Yeah, it has to be very, very small.
ISRO with NASA wouldn't be fair. However, this is not to say that ISRO has not achieved extraordinary results. It has. Two of the most successful launches of ISRO is the PSLV C-37 in 2017 and the Mangoyan in 2013. PSLV C-37 until this day holds the record for launching the most satellites in a single rocket, and Mangoyan successfully helped ISRO to become the fourth country to orbit Mars, even before the Chinese. But none of the aforementioned achievements comes close to what ISRO has spent for both missions. Around $70 million each. This, I think, reflects the core philosophy of ISRO, which is to be ambitious, but at the same time, cost-effective. In the 1960s, the Soviet Union and the United States competed fiercely in the space industry, which eventually accelerated the collapse of the Soviet Union, and now the Chinese are catching up with the Americans. Not to compete with NASA this time, but the Chinese are not going to be anyone else's lackey either.
I mean, I feel like it's coming back a little bit, yeah. Obviously, after the initial space race of the 60s, 70s, the excitement kind of died for decades and all that, but I feel like it's coming back a little bit right now. I don't know. I do feel like, people are talking about it again with SpaceX, with, different countries having their program, more countries than ever doing it. I mean, it's probably not as hype as it ever was, but it's coming back. As I always said, I hope during my lifetime, I get to at least go into space once or something. That'd be interesting. Yeah. Let's say I have 50 years in front of me. I hope I hope that's possible. Maybe. Who knows?
Therefore, while other space agencies compete to make the most powerful rockets in the world, ISRO never seemed to care about that. Just look at the evolution of its rocket launchers. They're all humbly named satellite launch vehicles. Different variations indicated by the first letter represent different orbit. PSLV for polar synchronous orbit and GSLV for geosynchronous orbit. This is the first clue of how pragmatic ISRO is. The second clue is in its vehicle design. If you take a closer look at ISRO's rocket evolution, it looks almost like SpaceX. The only difference is that ISRO has a more stable financial support from the Indian government, and SpaceX had none. But in terms of the approach to design launch vehicles, both organizations are very similar. SLV and ASLV was initiated in the 1980s, and ASLV's capability is similar to that of Falcon 1. The three versions of PSLVs have similar capabilities comparing to early versions of Falcon 9, and the GSLV has capabilities somewhat catching on to Falcon 9 Block 5. None of them could be classified as a super heavy lift launch vehicle like Falcon Heavy and Saturn V, but they're all super reliable and, most importantly, very cost effective. What's more impressive about the evolution of ISRO's launch vehicles is their adaptability. Take PSLV as an example. It has three versions: PSLV-CA, which stands for Core Alone, Standard PSLV, and PSLV.
This is getting very technical for me.
Well, all of them focus on polar synchronous orbit, which is around 600 kilometers altitude. Customers can choose which variations of vehicles to use based on the size of the satellite.
What does that even mean?
This is the beauty of a cost-effective launcher. Furthermore, because of its focus on cost effectiveness, ISRO also has to come up with brilliant engineering solutions to the problems it faces. One famous example is its experimental mission to Mars. On top of being the only successful Mars mission on the first try, ISRO had to perform 6 orbit-raising maneuvers over 3 weeks before heading to Mars. Because the vehicle does not have enough power like the Falcon Heavy to send satellites directly to Mars, it
just the rocket itself going,
the satellite's orbit before injecting it successfully to a heliocentric orbit to Mars. The engineering and the problem-solving behind it is truly amazing. This, I think, captures...
Call me stupid. Have astronauts been to Mars? No, right? Like, Mars is much farther away than the moon, right? I believe. I think. Yeah.
There's the essence of ISRO's success. As the founding father of ISRO, Vikram, used to say, there are some who question the relevance of space activities in the developing nation. To us, there's no ambiguity of purpose. We do not have the fantasy of competing with the economically advanced nations in the exploration of the moon or the planets or manned space flight. But we're convinced that if we're to play a meaningful role nationally and in the community of nations, we must be second to none in the applications of advanced technologies to the real problems of man and society.
That's deep.
I think this is the key to understand what ISRO stands for and how it differs from other space agencies and companies.
I mean, it's a good way to look at it. Like, they know they can't compete overall, but that doesn't mean that they can't do anything and, you know, get something out of it. So yeah, good way to look at it.
This is also why I said at the beginning, it is really hard to pigeonhole ISRO. It didn't have the fundings that NASA had, it didn't have the startup mindset and institution that SpaceX had, but none of this stopped ISRO from doing something extraordinary. This just comes to show how important passion and dedication is for any organization. You know, talking about ISRO makes me really happy because it's clearly made out of people who are passionate, dedicated, and above all, an institution that encourages it. Looking forward into the future, I think ISRO will continue to do great things. It's setting out to perform its first manned mission in 2022. I'd say good luck to ISRO.
Did it happen?
Before I publish this video, one of my viewers sent me this picture. Can you believe it? In the early days, engineers of ISRO had to send rocket parts with their bicycles to assemble them for testing. This is a situation they had to deal with every single day. They don't have a lot of resources. What they do have is passion and dedication. They only achieved what they did through hard work and a lot of practice. A good way to practice actively, though, is through brilliant.org.
At Poesia. Great sponsor. I just wanted to look up. So, did they actually do it? ISRO first manned mission. Did they actually do it? Oh, it still hasn't happened, I believe. Gaganyaan, that's the name. It must be something. India's maiden named space mission. I'm not finding the info. I think it hasn't happened yet. Yeah, I think it just hasn't happened yet. Okay. I think obviously with COVID, things probably got derailed and, like everything else, and so it just didn't happen yet. Fair enough, but I guess they still got to get to it. Okay, interesting. I mean, again, I, like many people, have this kind of fascination with space, and yeah, the more countries are doing some kind of space research and program and all that, I think is a good thing. All I can say. Um, Good video, very informative as always. I appreciate that. Okay, okay.